can we eat healthily without it feeling like another diet? I get asked this pretty often by clients, so I wanted to chat to you guys about it today. Whether you're on the path to healing your relationship with food, finding a healthy and peaceful relationship with food, or you're already there, or perhaps you're just looking to step away from diet culture, and you're wondering, how can I do all of that and break down all of the food rules and have food freedom and still, prioritize nutrition without it feeling like a diet? Well, I guess the main question that matters the most is, if this is you and healthy eating feels like a diet to you, then what specifically about healthy eating makes it feel like a diet to you? I'm going to run through some typical answers to that question that I normally get, and then we'll discuss them, we'll break them down. Healthy eating isn't fun. Eating healthy foods don't taste as good as junk foods. Trying to be healthy or focus on nutrition reminds me of being restrictive, and that really triggers me. Eating healthily takes planning, it takes preparation, and that to me feels draining and stressful and restrictive. Sometimes I get the answer of, well, if I can eat all foods in the case of food freedom, why would I choose to eat something nutritious rather than, a packet of Doritos? And then one final one I want to discuss with you is, well, if I can choose between crisps and a salad and I'm choosing a salad for the sake of choosing a salad, then isn't that restrictive? Isn't that deprivation? All of these things make perfectly good sense why we might think like this about healthy food when we've come from a history of dieting, of restricting, of perhaps bland food, perhaps making healthy food as a chore, just something to do temporarily while we lose weight. We can associate eating healthily with feeling deprived, and we may have a very all or nothing mindset about eating healthily. You're either eating very healthily and nutritiously, or you're off the rails. I know that's true for a lot of you guys' history. When we're used to dieting rules and calorie counting and junk foods, for lack of a better term, having this heightened allure to them. And this is why gentle nutrition, discussing nutrition in this way, is the last step of intuitive eating, for good reason. So let's start with healthy eating is not fun. All right, I hear you. What if I tasked you for an afternoon to go online and look up recipes that are made from fresh ingredients, home cooked, simple or complex, it doesn't matter, that sound really delicious to you and tasty? Let's say, if 10 is like the most delicious thing you've ever eaten, let's say it's at least an 8 out of 10. And simultaneously you look at it and say, yeah, that's, a relatively nutritious meal. Again, if we're saying arbitrarily, about 8 out of 10 nutritious, not that that really means anything, but I hope that you can see my point. Would it be possible to find recipes that fit both of those criteria? I'm willing to say yes. I think one of the common misconceptions or things holding clients back, at least from what I see, is this idea of healthy eating also has food rules involved with it and calorie constraints involved in it. And this tends to be what makes nutritious food bland or unappealing and not fun, rather than the fact that it's a nutritious meal itself. If we can remove the constraints of calories, and you guys know how I feel about those, and instead focus on satisfaction and making the meal really, really delicious, and if needed, sacrificing a little bit on the nutrition in order to make that so, then I'd say this is how we approach it. And if you say to me, okay, that's all well and good, I agree with you that nutritious food can also be really tasty and really satisfying and really fun, for lack of a better term. However, junk foods and processed foods and those types of food are still way more fun to me, and I'd still prefer to eat those. And that's really the issue at hand. Well, okay, there's still absolutely room in a healthy, way of eating, a nutritious way of eating for more processed food with low nutritional value. Of course there is. I eat them. I encourage people to eat them. They're a really important part of food freedom, is enjoying all foods. But I think the idea, the aim of food freedom is for junk foods or processed foods to not have this really heightened alertness. So always the first thing that I say is remove the deprivation of these, give permission to eat them so that they remove their novelty factor, which we spoke about in earlier steps. And then if it's still persisting and you're still looking for this huge amount of fun through processed foods and it's making healthy food less appealing, what I would say is that while food is of course meant to be a source of pleasure and enjoyment and satisfaction in all of our lives, if you're looking to food as a primary source of fun, you feel very deprived if you can't utilize these types of food all the time in order to bring excitement and joy and fun and pleasure into your life. I would argue that that's not an issue with the food itself, and perhaps more of an issue that fun and enjoyment isn't coming in a meaningful way from elsewhere in your life. And that's the thing perhaps more to focus on. I'm not going to get heavily into that now. I'm probably going to make a video on that specifically. Let me know if you'd like a video on that specifically, but I have made 2 videos that might be helpful to you for the moment on that topic, if that is you. So what about healthy food doesn't taste as good as junk food? So without repeating myself too much on what I just said, with, being creative and finding recipes that sound really tasty to you. And when you go out to restaurants and stuff, also experiment with finding more nutritious stuff on the menu that sounds really, really good. Because there will be meals and snacks and foods different for all of us that are as tasty and satisfying to you as quote unquote junk foods. There definitely will be. It just might take some exploration. Again, make sure that you're not depriving yourself of junk foods because this can make them taste better. And then beyond that, we might need a reshuffling of priorities and maybe to look at food in a different way. Because look, I'll agree with you that chocolate tastes amazing. It tastes really, really good. I'm not going to deny that, but yet I don't want to eat chocolate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm taking an extreme example here, by the way. And the reason for that being is while taste is important to me, there are so many other elements to my food and the way that I eat that I also value, like having variety and freshness and knowing that I'm nourishing my body and feeling satisfied and having good energy and having color on my plate and exploring different types of cuisines and tastes and flavors. And so if taste is the only thing that matters to you, or the main thing that matters to you, which of course it is really important, and that's leading you to thinking, well, if I like the taste of junk food so much more than healthy food, then why would I ever eat healthy food? And healthy food just feels like being on a diet. I would encourage you to really have a reflection on all the other things that are important to you through the way that you're eating. Outside of weight control or food rules or orthorexic values, why would someone care about eating nutritiously? For the most part, not all the time, but for the most part. And this brings me on to the next point to talk about. Eating healthily reminds me, or nutritiously, reminds me of being restrictive, and this triggers me. And again, I think this, from what I can see, is coming from a very deprivation type mindset of all of the things that I'm giving up, all of the junk foods that I'm not allowed to eat all of the time. I'm depriving myself, I'm restricting myself, I'm not saying yes to all foods all of the time. I'm losing. It's very much like I'm being deprived sort of mindset. And instead I'd encourage you to think, well, what is it that you are gaining? What is it that you're giving to yourself when you're eating nutritiously? And hopefully it will be different this time. If perhaps in the past you've eaten nutritiously and it was very calorie controlled and a bit bland with lots of food rules, this time it can be very, very different. It's not restrictive to want to nourish your body. And from what I've seen in clients that I know of myself, is it really doesn't feel restrictive to eat nutritiously when there's no rules about types of foods that can be eaten and no limit on calories. So I always encourage you to do things with your cooking now that you wouldn't have done in your dieting days. For me, it was things like using oil to cook. I never did that. I saw it as wasted calories. I would use low-fat coconut milk, low-fat hummus. I've mentioned those before. But now I might make all of the same meals. Oh, not all of the same meals. I might make a lot of the same meals, but now I use oil to cook, to fry off my onions and garlic, and I use whole-fat coconut milk in my curries, and it makes a huge difference, not just to the taste, but the mindset which I'm going into my food, which is one of satisfaction and abundance and not of restriction and control. Healthy eating isn't fun to me because it takes a lot of preparing and planning, And that to me is draining and stressful. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that cooking meals from scratch, making meals out of fresh ingredients doesn't take preparing and planning. It does. But again, what sort of mindset are we going into this with? Is this a chore and something that we're forcing on ourselves, or is it a gift? If you want to eat nutritiously and have that time and give it that space to do that, then really focus on why. Why is that important to you? And of course, as we all know, I don't need to tell you, we can make it more or less stressful. We can make it more or less time consuming, more or less draining. Absolutely, we can. I work with clients with a variety of different schedules, with a variety of different amounts of time off and free time to engage in preparing food and planning food and cooking food. And it's always possible once it's placed as a priority and it's seen as something very positive that they want to do for themselves. Something that really helps with this, I find, is to then really, if you're going to spend the time cooking, you make food that you're going to really enjoy, that you're really excited to eat. It makes the whole process more enjoyable. And plan for the time that you're going to do it so that it's not sort of an afterthought in the day that becomes a very stressful sort of grab and go type situation. You've planned for it. This is your half an hour in the evening to do your cooking, and you know it's there for that specific reason, and that can really help take the stress off. You might say, well, Rach, you're always saying, eat all foods and have permission to eat all foods. And if I really have permission to eat all foods, then why would I choose to eat like a salad, let's say, which is a really bad example, but just talking in the words that my clients might use. Why would I choose to eat a salad rather than a packet of Doritos? Why would I do that? And isn't just choosing a salad for the sake of choosing a salad to be healthy a form of restriction, of deprivation? And again, which mindset, which vantage point are we going into this looking at? Are we just focused on the I'm not eating Doritos aspect, or are we focusing on everything that we're gaining and get to have because we're eating this delicious salad that we're making? And if we're putting the time into preparing food that is nutritious but that we really, really enjoy and that's really delicious, please don't ever produce, well, not ever, because, life happens, but you don't need to make food that you don't enjoy, that doesn't taste really good to you. There's too many recipes out there that are nutritious and really, really tasty, taste preference dependent. There are too many of these recipes to ever sacrifice on taste. And not opting to say eat the bag of Doritos for dinner is not deprivation. It's deprivation saying I can never eat Doritos again. Of course, Doritos, if you like them, let them be a part of your diet. Absolutely. Enjoy them. No guilt, no shame. You can eat whatever you want, when you want, at all times. But it's about taking care of your wants and your needs, if that's what you'd like to do. Perhaps if we have the approach of, well, I know I can eat Doritos at any time when I want. I can eat them right now if I want to. I'm choosing to eat this or make a nutritious home-cooked meal because it serves me. It's going to keep me feeling satisfied for when I go off to work in the afternoon. It's going to keep me in good energy. It nourishes my body. And, if I want to eat Doritos as well later, then of course I can do. It's all about balancing wants and needs and being really clear with ourselves of what they are. How do you want to take care of yourself through food? How do you want to support your physical and mental and spiritual health through food? There's a place for everything, but there's not a place for everything all of the time, perhaps. Some other things that I'll mention with you guys about how setting up healthy eating so that it doesn't feel like a diet is it very much also, very importantly, not having food rules, not having I must, I should do this. It's always I might, I can, I'm choosing to, and having full permission to eat all foods. Always, I can eat whatever I want when I want. Is this what I truly want to eat right now? Is this going to serve me right now? And sometimes that is a piece of cake. And sometimes it is a bowl of salmon stir fry, because we can have it all. We can have a healthy way of eating, a nutritious way of eating, and have flexibility and have full permission to eat all foods and be at peace with food. Just got to reframe it into healthy eating isn't restrictive. It is a gift that we give ourselves along with the gift of flexibility. So now that we've opened up the can of worms that is nutrition, finally on this channel, we've talked a lot about the mindset and the approach to healing our relationship with food, but haven't talked all that much about nutrition, which is odd because I am a nutritionist. But now I feel like we've opened that lid. We can discuss nutrition a lot more if you would like me to, of course. But for today, that's all for me today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it helpful, and leave any comments you have down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.